The lottery ticket I shouldn't have bought. Most people believe that a single piece of paper can solve every problem they have ever known. They imagine that a sudden flood of money washes away sadness, anxiety, and loneliness. They dream of the day when they can walk away from their jobs and never look back. However, for a man named Arthur, that piece of paper did not bring salvation. It brought a storm that nearly drowned him. It is often said that we should be careful what we wish for, because getting everything we want might actually cost us everything we need. This is the story of a man who won the world, but almost lost his soul in the process. Arthur was a man of simple habits and modest means. He worked in a quiet library in a small town, a job that paid little, but offered him a great sense of peace. He loved the smell of old paper and the sound of rain against the windows. He had a wife named Alina, and together they lived in a small apartment that was often drafty in the winter. They worried about bills, just like everyone else. They saved coupons for the grocery store and debated whether they could afford to go to the cinema on the weekend. Despite these small struggles, their home was filled with laughter. They had friends who came over for dinner, sharing cheap pasta and telling stories late into the night. Arthur felt that his life was ordinary, but looking back, he would realize it was actually full. One rainy Tuesday evening, Arthur made a decision that would shatter this quiet existence. He stopped at a convenience store to buy milk, and on a complete whim, he purchased a lottery ticket. He did not truly believe he would win. It was just a moment of fantasy, a way to buy a few hours of hope. But the next morning, as he checked the numbers on his television screen, the world seemed to stop spinning. The numbers matched, every single one of them. In a single second, Arthur had become wealthier than he could have ever comprehended. When he told Elena, she wept. They held each other on the floor of their kitchen, shaking with a mixture of joy and terror. They believed that their struggles were over forever. They believed that they were finally free. However, they did not understand that money has a weight of its own, and that weight can crush a person just as easily as poverty can. The change happened slowly at first, and then all at once. The news of their victory spread through their town like a wildfire. Suddenly, the phone did not stop ringing. People Arthur had not spoken to in 20 years were calling to congratulate him, but their voices held a strange, hungry tone. Everyone wanted something. His cousin needed a new car. A neighbor needed help with a business idea. Even strangers began to approach him on the street, telling him sad stories and asking for help. Arthur was a kind man, and at first he tried to help everyone. But he soon realized that his generosity was like a drop of water in a desert. It was never enough. The paranoia began to set in within the first few months. Arthur started to wonder if his friends were truly his friends. When they came over for dinner, he watched their eyes. He wondered if they were looking at his new furniture or calculating how much he could give them. The laughter that used to fill his home was replaced by an awkward silence. His friends felt uncomfortable around his new wealth, and Arthur felt guilty for having it. Slowly, the dinner parties stopped. The friends stopped calling. Arthur and Elena were left alone, isolated by their own good fortune. To escape the pressure, they decided to move. They bought a massive mansion in a wealthy neighborhood, far away from their old life. The house was beautiful, with high ceilings, marble floors, and a garden that looked like a park. It was the kind of house everyone dreams of owning. But when Arthur sat in the living room, he realized that the silence was deafening. The house was so large that he and Elena could go hours without seeing each other. They hired staff to cook and clean, which meant they no longer cooked dinner together. The simple intimacy of their old life had been replaced by cold, professional perfection. Arthur quit his job at the library, thinking he would enjoy a life of leisure. He thought he would travel and see the world. Instead, he found himself sitting in his expensive chair, staring at the wall. He had no purpose. He had nowhere to be. The structure of his day had vanished, and with it, his sense of self-worth. He realized that the library was not just a job. It was his connection to the community. Without it, he was just a rich man in a tower. His mental health began to deteriorate. He felt anxious all the time. He installed expensive security cameras and high fences, terrified that someone would try to take what he had. He had become a prisoner of his own wealth. The climax of his despair arrived on his birthday. Elena had organized a lavish party with expensive catering and a live band. The house was filled with people, but as Arthur looked around the room, he realized he did not know half of the guests. They were wealthy neighbors, business associates, and people who wanted to be near his money. He felt a profound sense of loneliness in the middle of the crowd. He escaped to the balcony and looked out at the city lights. He thought about his old apartment. He thought about the drafty windows and the cheap pasta. He realized with a shocking clarity that he had been happier when he was poor. He had traded his community, his purpose, and his peace of mind for a bank account that he could not even enjoy. He found Elena in the kitchen, away from the guests. She looked tired. Her eyes were sad. She confessed that she missed their old life. She missed their friends. She missed him. The money had built a wall between them, and they were both trapped on the same side, yet miles apart. Arthur knew then that something drastic had to happen. He realized that if he kept living this way, he would lose the only thing that actually mattered, his marriage and his soul. The resolution came the following week. Arthur made a decision that shocked his lawyers and the public. He did not give all the money away, for that would be reckless, but he decided to remove its power over him. He set up a charitable foundation that would manage the majority of the funds, directing the money toward libraries and community centers. He removed himself from the direct control of the wealth. He and Elena sold the mansion. It was too big, too cold, and too empty. They moved to a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. It was nicer than their first apartment, but it was small enough that they could hear each other from the next room. Arthur went back to work. He did not return to the same library, but he volunteered at a local community center, teaching adults how to read. He found his purpose again. He reconnected with his old friends, not as a savior, but as a person who had made a mistake and come back. It took time to rebuild the trust, but slowly the laughter returned. Arthur learned a lesson that few people ever get the chance to understand. He learned that wealth is not defined by the number of zeros in a bank account. True wealth is the ability to trust the people around you. It is having a reason to wake up in the morning. It is the comfort of a small, warm home and the sound of a loved one in the next room. The lottery ticket had promised him the world, but it had almost cost him his life. He was grateful for the money he could give away, but he was even more grateful for the simple life he had reclaimed. This story reminds us that while financial freedom is a valid goal, it cannot replace the fundamental human needs for connection, purpose, and love. Money is a magnifying glass. It makes you more of what you already are, and it exposes the cracks in your foundation. But I want to hear from you. If you were handed millions of dollars tomorrow, do you honestly believe it would solve your problems? Or do you think it would create new, more difficult ones?